Hello and welcome to the second video in this Atlassian Jira administration tutorial video series. In the previous video we discussed how to get your free 30-day on-demand trial on the Atlassian Jira website. In this video we'll be discussing how to set up the top-level Jira settings. When you first log on to your brand new Jira installation, or if you've got a downloaded server edition, you will see a light box that looks a little bit like this. Select project type and the various options. Because we're going to be configuring the top level settings first, click on cancel, click on the little cog in the top right hand corner, and then click on system. Okay, and you'll be taken to the Jira Administration Control Center. Excellent. So now you'll see that we're on the settings page for general configuration. So first off, click on Edit Settings. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is talk you through every single field, well, not every single one, but most of them, and what they do. Okay, any that I skip over, there's additional documentation available in the Jira Administrator's Guide, which I pointed to in the previous video. So let's get started. Application title. This is a very simple, self-explanatory one. I would recommend changing it from Jira so that your system is more lovable and that your users can enjoy it perhaps a bit more. Okay, so I'm going to call it Fun Bugs. Next up, their field mode allows you to decide whether it's a public system which anyone can log into or contribute to, or whether it's a private system which only specific users granted access by administrators can sign up to. Public would be things would be used for like I said, open source collaborations, and private would probably be used by companies and that sort of thing, generally speaking. Okay. Next up, maximum authentication attempts allowed. So this is for the purpose of saying you can attempt to log in up to 3 times before a captcha box is shown. Captcha, for those who don't know, is effectively a sort of tool that webmasters use to prevent automation used for negative purposes. So this would be things such as computer setup to try and break passwords, or create multiple accounts, or to prevent comment spam on things like WordPress blogs and such. Okay. Next up, captcha on sign up. As I say, that it's only useful if the system is set to the public mode. Okay. Next up, base URL. This is specifically used to determine where users go when they're logging onto your system. Okay, it's not relevant for on demand, so I'll skip over it. But if you do have a downloaded version, you may need to modify this, especially for troubleshooting purposes. Okay. Next up is the email from field. Okay, so this is used in notification emails. What I'm going to do here is change this to our system title. Okay, you can also see that there's various different syntaxes you can use. Okay, next up, the introduction field is used in the introduction gadget on the system and other dashboards. Okay. So if we go to the introduction system dashboard and the introduction gadget, you can see by default it is pre-populated with text from Atlassian. If we now modify it to say hello and welcome to Funbugs, and update our system settings and refresh the page, you will now see the system title has changed to Funbugs as we specified at the top of the configuration page, and also the data we entered into the introduction field is now showing. Excellent, easy peasy. So next up in sequence is, let's see, okay, languages. These are all pretty straightforward. If in doubt, stick with English, but if you need to localize it for a specific purpose, feel free to change it, and also the time zone. Okay, self-explanatory, so I'm not going to get into that in too much detail. Next up is the voting and watching field options. So this is very simple. Voting allows users to say, Atlassian have a feature request Jira system. So if you need, or you want something improved, you can create a ticket, and then people from all over the internet can go onto this system and vote up the issues that they want to be worked on. Okay, that is what voting is for. You can set both of these options in project permissions as well as here. So this is the top level system setting, so I think it should typically be on, and then you can actually turn it off at a permission level for individual projects. Okay. Watching, by contrast, is used if people want to be involved in a workflow. So what we're saying specifically is ticket 123 has been updated, and I've selected to watch that ticket, so I'll get an email notification whenever it's updated. Okay, very simple. Again, it can be configured in the system at a project permission level. Okay. Maximum project name size should be kept low. Projects should not really have very long names, I think, both for reasons of conciseness and also because it keeps the database smaller. Okay, and it's the same with key size. The project key is used when you're searching for an issue. So if you create an issue in a project titled, let's say, I don't know, GG for example, it would be GG dash project number, issue number, so it could be GG dash 123. Okay, so it's important to keep the project key short, but also clear, so you avoid confusing multiple projects. Okay. Next up, we have allow unassigned issues. So this is an option that says, do you want to be able to create an issue that is assigned to nobody at all? If you have it off, then what you'll find is that all issues will go to somebody. So by default there is a project lead who potentially could be a project manager who receives all the issues, and then they can go and reassign it to individuals. On the other hand, if you have it on, then you can use a filter results query to you can do a search, save the results as a filter and have that as a query. So you could say all unassigned and unresolved issues and have that effectively as a work queue for a team to pick up. Okay, so I would typically allow that to be on, but it's up to you. Okay. External user management is a very simple option, but very hard to implement, in fact. I'd strongly suggest checking out the Jira Administrator's Guide for this if you want it. The way you could use it, for example, is you could have a Confluence system and a Jira system, and then use a shared user database. So you could use the same login credentials across either system. Okay. Logout confirmation is pretty self-explanatory, so we'll skip that. Use gzip compression, I would typically ignore that. You don't need it for on-demand. And for a downloaded system, I would stick with the default. You can play around with it, see what works better for you, but I would generally steer clear. Okay. Next up, accept remote API calls. So for security purposes, I would advocate switching this to off unless you have a specific use for it. Okay, so we'll stick it to off for the time being. You may need it in application linking. So if you were going to link, let's say, Confluence and Jira together, but for the time being, let's leave it as off. Okay, Confluence, by the way, I know I'm referring to this. This is Atlassian's wiki system. Okay. So you would need to, so feel free to check that out. I might do a video series on that, but it's quite a simple system, so perhaps not. We'll see. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked here. So user email visibility. So generally speaking, I would stick with the default show to logged in users only. This is to make sure that users' data is secure, really. But if it's a closed private system, then you may as well keep it as visible. Okay. Comment visibility, generally speaking, I would leave it as project roles. You can use this if you want to lock down who can see comments. I would be, if I was designing a system, I would make I would set the project security. So anyone who can access the project can access all the comments, but you might decide otherwise. Okay. Exclude email header preference bulk. So this is specifically to avoid Jira notification emails going into spam folders. So I would ignore it unless you're getting some sort of issue with Jira emails. Okay. Right. Next up, issue picker autocomplete. So yes, this should be set to on. This is when you have an issue picker field defined somewhere. The autocomplete function will give you a drop-down list of the available options. It's very good. I can't imagine why you turn it off unless you're trying to perhaps reduce server load, but even then it's very useful. JQL autocomplete. So when you're doing an advanced search, I'm going to give you an example here because it's fun. If we're going to do an advanced search, okay, such as, come on computer, speedy. So what we'll do an advanced search here. So we'll say assignee equals assign. Okay. I don't mean that. Let's say current user. That's better. Yeah. I think you can do unassigned, but let's not get distracted right now. Okay, so current user, and you can see I've created 2 issues. Okay, simple, and by having that option on, you get the drop down functionality, which is really helpful. Yep, cool. So next up, after that, what are we up to? Let's see. Cool. Contact administrators form. So this is useful for users to be able to get in touch with the administrator, and messages will go to the email address set up with that the system is set up with. I would generally turn this form off if you've got a private system, and leave it on if you have a public system. So if you've got a private system, let people contact you through another channel. If you've got a public system, then you might need it for web users. Okay, but you're welcome to do it however you want to. But I'm going to turn it off in this particular one. Okay. Use Gravatar for user avatars. I'm not bothered about that. And auto update search results. Yes, that's a new feature with the redesigned search, and it just speeds things up. So there's no reason not to have that on, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Great. Next up, system information or system info. So this is quite technical, and you may only need it when you're working through a bug with Atlassian support or something similar. Where I would say pay attention is to the memory usage. If the memory usage is very high, then what I would advocate is increasing the virtual memory in the, I think it's called a sevent, SEVNTH, possibly something like that, .sh file, and that's on a server, and you can use that to increase the virtual memory size, in addition to obviously the server RAM and the server's processors and all the rest of it. I'd only worry about this if it's very high, but it can speed up the running of Jira if you put it to if you increase the memory allocation, virtual memory allocation. Okay. The rest of it I generally ignore. All right. It's not particularly necessary to look into this unless you've got a problem. Okay. Defaults should be sufficient. Right. Time tracking. This is used for well, I don't want to get too sidetracked with this, but time tracking basically should be set to on. Okay, and then as long as the fields on the create issue screen are present, so original estimate and remaining estimates, I think, you can then, we might cover this in a later video depending on how things go, but essentially enables users to say, I estimate that this task will take 2 weeks, and then when they update the issue, they can say, okay, I've spent 1 week on this, so there's 1 week remaining, and so on and so forth. Okay, quite useful. I see no reason to turn it off. Okay, but you may want to. Issue linking. Issue linking, I would certainly not turn off. Okay. If we're going to, yeah, I'm going to show you an example here. So these are the different statuses you can say why an issue is linked. So an issue that blocks another issue prevents it from being completed, or duplicates is an obvious one. This issue is identical to the other one, so typically you would say I'm going to close the duplicate and keep the original open. Okay, or relates to again, pretty self-explanatory. So if we're talking about an issue link, if we go into this issue which I created earlier, aren't you lucky? So this is an issue, and what I'm going to do is link it to another ticket. So if we go link, okay, this issue duplicates, and then we'll go, see the little code here, FFUN-2, FNUN-1. Okay, simple. So then I click on link, okay, and you'll now see that it is linked. Perfect, yep, no trouble whatsoever. Okay, if you want to get rid of the link, you can just click on the delete button, depending on if you've got permission to do it, which as administrators we do, happily. Cool, so next up we'll close that down, and what we could do here is we could add in another status. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory. You just type in the name, type in the outward and inward description, and click on add. Easy. Okay. Next up, system dashboard. Right, okay, so dashboards are a great part of Jira. They're typically a user tutorial issue. So I would say if you don't know much about dashboards, have a look through the user guide and get familiar with them because they're brilliant. I think they're one of the best things about Jira. Okay, what we're going to do here is add in a filter results gadget, because filter results is, in my opinion, the most useful of all the gadgets. Okay, so what we'll do is when it pops up, which is going to do in a minute, we'll add that in, and I'll talk you through how to set up a search query. So at the top, filter results. Yep, add it now. Okay, done. Excellent. So what you'll see here is we're going to get results from a search result, and it will show the issue type, the key, the priority, and a summary, so the title essentially. We're also going to set it to update every 15 minutes. So as long as you've got your dashboard open without having to reload the page, this gadget will dynamically update every 15 minutes. Before we can add in a filter, we have to create one. Okay, a saved filter. So if you go issues and search for issues, nice and simple. What we're going to do, we'll go back to basic. Okay. So the filter that we want to create is, let's see, so we want issues in the Freaky Fun project. The type will be, that's not relevant at the moment, the status will be open, in progress, reopened, but not resolved or closed. So this would mean we only see stuff that's relevant to us. And the assignee will be the current user. Okay? Cool. Okay? You can add in loads more here, okay? But we'll keep it simple for the time being. Okay? So dynamically updated all the search results. So now we'll click on Save As. Excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this Freaky Fun. Freaky Fun, my unresolved issues. Okay? And then we'll submit that. Okay. Then we'll go back to this page. Okay. Right, Freaky Fun, my unresolved issues. Number of results to appear in the gadget. If you put it to lower, so if we set it to 6, you'll see what happens in a moment. Okay, and then we'll click on save. So actually won't. If we set it to 1 as an example here, you will see if it's set to 1, then it will show you 1, and then you'll get page 2 for the next one. Yep. The default is about 10, and that's fine. Okay. Cool, cool. So that's all there is to it. You can also change the color scheme. I think color schemes make it a bit more interesting, so I'd strongly advocate doing that. And you can also drag and drop you can drag and drop the gadgets, and you can also change the layout. But the standard is 4 panels. You can make it 6, you could make it 2, you can do whatever you want to do. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to keep it at 4 actually. Cool. So that's quite fun. Then on whenever any user logs in, they will, unless they've set up a custom dashboard, they will. And if you're going to do that, you'd click on Tools and Create a Dashboard. Okay, but that's the user thing, so we'll gloss over that. But for any standard user, they would log in and they would see the default system dashboard right here. Okay, so that's where you'd set that all up. Simple and easy. Cool. Navigator Columns is the next one we're going to look at. So, okay, where do we need to be for this one? This is right. Right. So, when you do a search, you'll see I've got it in list view at the moment, which is useful. You will see that you have various headers. Okay, if it's not in list view for you, by the way, if it's in detail view, switch it to list view. Okay, so if you've got hundreds of tickets, which with a big system you may well have, you'll see you get a load of like filled titles. You can bespoke them yourself as a user. Okay, I forget why you do that. I think it's there. There you go. So configure columns. But as an administrator, we can say that what we actually want is to set a default order. So if we wanted to have the summary at the front, which I think is potentially a good idea, but you're free to disagree. So we'll change the summary to the front, and then we can reload the page. Okay, give it a minute, and there it is, summary. That's all there is to it. Okay, nice and simple. Excellent. So after this, let's have a look at the look and feel. Oh, also, before we skip ahead, I was going to show you that you can add a new column, so whatever you want, such as I don't know which one is it. So who's watching an issue, or time spent, or whatever you want, or description, for example. Okay, simple, simple and easy and fun. So next up, logo, or rather look and feel. This is where you get a chance to be creative. I strongly advise changing all of these default options to make the system a bit more exciting and a bit more engaging for you and your users. Okay, so what you do, you upload an image to these dimensions, 30 pixels, 57 width. You can change them, but that's for you to play around with. Okay, so upload an image, the system will stick it in right there. Simple and easy. Site title is very straightforward also. So if I click on that one and click on update, you will see Funbugs is now showing. So if you recall a while ago, we defined the site title. It's now showing right there. Easy. Yep. The favicon. So for any non-web developers, I'm sure every web developer in the world will be able to tell you, well, not everyone, but most of them will be able to say what a favicon is. It's the little icon that you see by the side of the title text. Okay? It should typically be, I think, 64 by 64 pixels, and then Jira will dynamically update it. Okay? Nice and straightforward. Color schemes. So this is another opportunity to get creative. I'd strongly advise bespoking your color schemes to your corporate or project, or your company's, or like your community's styles and branding. So if we take this and give it a nice blue, okay, and then click on update. Bear with me 1 second while I reload this page. Okay, take a minute to update. What you should see, yeah, so the color scheme is updated, and there's loads of different options here that you can bespoke. Gadget Colors are what I showed you earlier on the dashboard. Where was it? Where was it? I think it was on the system dashboard page. So what you've got to bear in mind also is that users can't bespoke the system dashboard. So you'll see they've only got very simple options such as minimize. Okay, if they've got their own dashboard, if they've gone through and created their own dashboard, they can bespoke it in the same way we can modify the system dashboard. The where was I looking for? Let's zip back to where I was. System dashboard. Okay. So these are the so yeah, gadget colors relate directly to the color options you can select here. Simple and easy. Yep. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Time format. So here you might decide that you want to see something a bit in a different display to this. So you might want to see, instead of the time, you might want to see the day as well, or you might want to see, instead of months as 3 letters, you might want to see them as actual numbers or whatever. So can be useful, and also use the ISO 86001 standard and date picker. So Monday is the first day of the week. Makes sense to me, so I'm going to do it, but it's up to you if you want to, okay? Okay, fine, don't need to worry about that. So, next up, announcement banner. So, what we are doing here is defining whether, well, first of all, what we're doing is we're saying what message we want to be shown across the entire Jira system. So, hello, the system is undergoing maintenance. Okay, now when I click on Set Banner, you will see that on every page of the system, this message will now display. Okay, give it a take my word for it. Yes, hello, the system is undergoing maintenance. Excellent. Yep. So, visibility. If it's public, then it will be accessible to people on the login page. Okay, and if the system is public, it will be shown to anyone who's viewing. If it's private, it will only be visible to people who are already logged in. Okay, simple. Right, so we're going to get rid of this so we don't have this everywhere, but you can imagine there's a range of uses for that. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Application Navigator. So here's one I made earlier, really. I'll talk you through it. Fun Bugs is the default, which you can see if you click here. And beneath that, there is Google, which I defined. So the name Google, the URL google.co.uk, and the group that it's applicable to. So let's do this with another example, just for the sake of completeness. http yahoo.co.uk groups, users, and add. Okay, perfect. So now what we do is we can drag this to there or wherever you want it to be, and I have to refresh, of course, first. But now Yahoo. Fine, fine, fine. So easy. So it's as easy as that, really. This is all there is to this administration hierarchy. Very simple and very straightforward. So, next up, import and export. So, backup manager. So, what I'd strongly suggest you do is get, if you've got a downloaded edition of Jira, I would strongly advocate having a server host that backs up your system for you at least daily. So, everything on the server is backed up daily. That way, you don't have to worry about Jira creating the backups, okay? And it also takes up less space on your server. Bear in mind that Jira systems, once you start chucking in issues and attachments, can get very, very big and take an awful lot of space on the servers. So be aware in advance and plan ahead. Okay, but yeah, because it's only every 24 hours, in this particular scenario, you shouldn't have too much trouble. But yeah, I would advocate trying to get your server host to do the hard work for you, so you don't have to have Jira do it. Right? Simple. External system import. Okay, this I've never used this, but I'll tell you roughly what it is. This is if you've got another system, another bug tracking system or issue ticketing system, and you want to import the data from it. You'll need to check the Atlassian help files for this. Click on import, follow the wizard through, and away you go. Okay, simple, simple, simple. You could also contact Atlassian if you're in the support period. Nice. Jira import. Okay. So this is to import data from another Jira system to your Jira system. Heed the warning, this operation will delete all existing Jira data. Repeat, this operation will delete all existing Jira data. So take care, alright? But this is if you want to import data from another system. Follow the wizard through and away you go. Okay, I would check the documentation as well, just in case, right? Make sure. So next up we have mail, and specifically incoming mail. Okay. So this is all about setting up your POP/IMAP mail servers. What I generally advocate here is speaking to an IT email administrator. I personally am not too proficient in this area, but I can give you a bit of a heads up. So you type in the details of your POP access. Normally your IT department could provide that. If you're a smaller team or a one-man band or whatever, consider using Gmail. So if you go into Gmail, you should be able to find the POP3 settings. I think they're under advanced settings. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, they're there. Okay, have a look through, get the details, and plop them in here, and test it, add it, and you're done. Okay, nice and simple. Okay, mail queue. Yes, I want to leave this page. Mail queue. Okay. So this should never be anything other than 0. Okay, if it is above 0, then your server is too slow or there is a problem with Jira. Okay, consider increasing the virtual memory or RAM on your server if there is a problem here. Okay, and also that button. I've never needed to use it, but if you do, this is where it is. Okay, nothing to worry about there. So let's skip over the next two. Again, they're quite self-explanatory. Send email is just saying I want to send an email to specific users within the system as an administrator. Simple and straightforward. HIP chat configuration I've never needed to do. I would suggest checking the documentation for that if you need that specific use. Okay. On to the next ones then. So, look, we're nearly there. Right, indexing. Nice and easy. So, in the old world, Jira did not allow background reindexing, which meant that any time you updated a plugin, or you modified your fields, or you modified your screens, you would get an annoying message at the top of the administration screen saying something along the lines of Jira was updated by such and such user and should be reindexed, and then you'd have to wait for a time when the system wasn't under heavy use to reindex. Now with background reindex, you just click that button and away you go. Okay, so you should be thinking about using it when, like I say, a plugin's been updated, or if you see any errors with your dashboard that aren't obvious things. So for example, if you've got a filter results gadget and you rename the filter, that will cause an error. But if it's none of those obvious things, consider doing a reindex to make sure that everything's in the database, search database, is fine. Also, you should do it as a matter of course if the system is running very slowly when you try to do searching. Okay, simple. Okay, so attachments. This is another simple setting, nothing to worry about here. So the attachment size is saying how big a file am I able to attach to a ticket. At the moment it's set by default to 10 megabytes, I think, but you can change that from 10 to 1 or 10 to 100 megabytes, whatever you want. Like I say, remember that attachments will increase the size on your server, and in the short term it doesn't matter, but in the long term, once you've got thousands of tickets, beware, because it will start to add up if you've got a lot of users. If you've only got a few users, probably nothing to worry about. But equally, though, that's kind of what the point of the system is, to get the data off of users' computers and onto the cloud. So yeah, be generous, but be aware you may need extra server capacity. Okay. So next up, thumbnails. So this is generally a good idea to leave it on. So when you when you upload an image, you'll see a little thumbnail on the issue page. However, there is a caveat that sometimes you'll get, for some types of JPEG, I think, and possibly other image types, sometimes you'll get an error message if it's encoded. I'm not sure the exact cause of it, but it's something that I came across. I would advocate leaving it on though, and not worrying too much about those occasional cases of that. Alright. Finally, enable zip support. This is to allow zip files to be uploaded. Often it's a good idea to encourage that, because then you're not using so much space on the server. But equally, if you have the individual files there, so if you have a text file, an image, and so on, you can just click directly onto the image, directly into the text file from within the browser without having to download it. So I would have the option on, but I wouldn't generally encourage its usage. Okay? Cool. Anything more? Yep, events. Okay. Events are really exciting. How do I describe events? Okay, so if you imagine that whenever something happens within the system, such as an issue is created or an issue is updated, that class is classed as an event. Okay, so these are system defined ones. So the issue gets created and it then sends a message to the default notification scheme. Oops, an issue's been created. Send out an email to all the people who want to receive notification. Okay. So what you could say, here's an example I've set up. Okay, request update. So I haven't set this up fully, but to give you an idea, what this would be is you could say in your workflow, I want there to be an option to request an update. If, for example, I'm unhappy that there's no progress. Okay, what you do, you create a let's call it request update. Okay, you would then select an appropriate template. You can build your own. I have never done that because it's a pain, but it is possible. But for the sake of argument, let's use the issue updated template. Okay, so you would create this event, and then you could say, okay, so in the workflow, I will set up a button, a transition request update, that will then fire the request update event, and once that event has been fired, it will then be send a message to the notification scheme to email the relevant person. Gotcha? Got it? Yep. So in that way you can do some quite nifty things. Okay? Cool. Next up in okay, webhooks. I've never used webhooks. I'll very briefly show you this, but I've never used it. It's a new feature that Jira introduced. I don't know exactly how you'd use it, but I believe it's about integrating, perhaps a bit similar to application linking. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I haven't used it, but my understanding is that you could, let's see, used by remote applications to receive notification of events on Jira issues. Okay, so that's potentially, not sure exactly how you'd use that. I have to check the use cases, but yeah, well, for the time being, not a mainstream use. So if you need any more info on that, check the documentation. I did look at it briefly. It's quite interesting, but at the moment, I'd like to see a few more examples of how it can be used before using it myself. You might be able to integrate it with Confluence or something. Yep. Confluence is the Atlassian wiki tool, and the two systems, Jira and Confluence, can be linked together through application linking. which I don't know if I'll be covering that in this tutorial series, but there is good documentation on that on the Atlassian Jira Confluence documentation area thing. Okay, right. Services are not really something that you'll typically need to adjust. They're all set up by Jira at a sort of default services essentially. So for mainstream administration, you probably won't need to do it. If you do need to do it for a specific use case, for a specific use, I apologize, then research it on the documentation and go from there. Okay. Right. Last one, scheme tools. Again, this isn't something I've used, and generally speaking, I would try to avoid using these things. These are ways that Atlassian give you of trying to bulk administer your Jira project, or sorry, your Jira system. If there's a if you want to change the structure. But generally speaking, I wouldn't. I would try and design it from the start in a way that it doesn't need any additional modifications. Okay. So we have gone through every screen of the Jira it's actually every screen of the Jira administration area, and hopefully now you feel a little bit more confident about what's important, what isn't, and how to change things around. Okay. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.